In 1977, a single mother in North London made a frantic phone call to police, claiming that her children were being thrown from their beds by an invisible force. Officers arrived, expecting a prank or maybe just a stressed out parent simply exaggerating. But instead, they watched a heavy wooden chair slide across the floor on its own with their very own eyes. This is the true story of the Enfield Poltergeist, one of the most documented hauntings in history, with over 30 eyewitnesses, hundreds of hours of audio recordings, and phenomena that even police officers, reporters, and investigators could never explain and still can't until this very day. And what happened to the children at the center of it all? Well, that's far scarier. It starts with 11-year-old Janet Hodgson and her 13-year-old sister Margaret. They're trying to sleep in their small upstairs bedroom. It's August 31st, 1977. The girls are whispering about school the next day when they hear something. 3 distinct knocks. Knock, knock, knock. Coming from the wooden dresser. Now, Janet thinks that it's simply Margaret messing with her, and Margaret thinks that it's Janet messing with her. But when they both sit up, the dresser moves. Not a lot, just an inch. But then it moves another inch, and another. Then it scrapes loudly across the floor, stopping only when it slams into the door, blocking it completely shut. The girls begin to scream. Now their mother, Peggy, bursts into the room to see what all this commotion's about, see what's going on. Now, she tries to push the dresser back, but it feels like it's being held in place by something much stronger than her, an invisible force, if you will. Now, that's when she takes her children and she runs out of the room, she runs out of the house, out onto the street, and Peggy simply calls the police. 2 officers arrive expecting a domestic dispute or maybe just, a burglary. But instead, they stand in the children's room, notebook in hand. The house feels ominously still. And then a chair in the corner slides about 3 to 4 feet, just across the floor. Now, one officer later wrote, "It moved without any apparent cause." And another wrote, "I checked the floor. It was not sloped. There was no wires, no magnets." Now, they were so disturbed that they filed an official police report, but they did admit that they had no idea what to do or what was going on. Now, the Hodgsons were on their own until the activity escalated. Now, over the next few days, the house at 284 Green Street becomes a complete nightmare. Loud bangs echo through the walls like sledgehammers. Toys begin launching themselves across the room. A heavy fireplace heater literally rips away from the wall. Lights begin to flicker all over the house. Doors begin to just slam themselves open and shut, open and shut. But the worst of it centers on Janet. Now, neighbors begin helping the family, but they watch Janet's body literally begin to twist and bend and jerk violently as if something is yanking her limbs, trying to tear her apart. Now, the girl starts speaking in a deep, just gravely voice, that of a man, and it's obvious that it's not her voice. And she would do this sometimes for hours on end. The Hodgsons contact the Society for Physical Research, a British paranormal investigation group. Now, 2 investigators arrive, Maurice Gross and Guy Lyon Playfair. Now, they expected exaggeration. Instead, they walk into a full-blown case file. They record hundreds and hundreds of incidents. Furniture flipping on its side, being tossed across the room, coins materializing and just dropping from midair, voices speaking through Janet that claimed to be a dead man named Bill Wilkins, and Janet being thrown across the room, sometimes in front of witnesses. They literally saw this happening. Now, Playfair would later describe the house as a pressure cooker of paranormal chaos. Janet's voice becomes the center of the investigation. Recordings capture her speaking in just a deep male voice, and that voice was claiming, "My name is Bill. I lived here before. I died in that chair downstairs. Investigators later traced the name Bill Wilkins to a real man who once lived in that house. Now, they tracked down his son, who confirmed that, yes, indeed, his father died exactly the way that the voice had described. But the creepiest part is that doctors examined Janet and said that producing that tone of voice for such a prolonged period of time, for so long, should have caused severe damage to her vocal cords, yet her throat was completely fine. Some investigators believed that Janet was channeling something, right? Something dark. Others believed that she was just simply being controlled by this spirit or voice or whatever you want to call it. The haunting becomes a national spectacle. It becomes national news, right? Everybody's talking about this. Reporters crowd outside of 284 Green Street. Interviews take place inside the small home. One photographer claims that he saw Legos flying through the air with enough force to literally leave dents all over the wall. A BBC crew tried to record inside of the house, but all of their equipment failed simultaneously with no explanation. The Hodgsons are overwhelmed, exhausted, and terrified, rightfully so. I mean, who wouldn't be? Janet's health, unfortunately, declines rapidly. She sleepwalks, screams at night, and sometimes wakes up in other rooms on top of the wardrobe. Investigators try everything: cameras, microphones, physical tests, psychological tests, and evaluations. They catch Janet bending spoons, hiding a tape recorder, and suddenly the public begins to shout, "Hoax. The entire thing is a hoax." But here's the problem with that, is that even during those staged moments, the terrifying activity continued in front of adults, in front of police and neighbors and reporters and strangers. Too many events had witnesses. Too many events had no logical explanation. In the winter of 1978, the haunting reaches its peak. Janet becomes the target of violent fits. Furniture overturns. Investigators watch her literally levitate from her bed and land several feet away. Then Janet claims that the entity is threatening to kill her. Maurice Gross later revealed that during one of the last nights that he was observing this, he saw a shadowy figure in the girl's room just for a moment, standing by the bed. Now, he refused to describe it in detail, and all he said was, it was not human, and it was not a hallucination. Eventually, after months of terror, the activity begins to fade away. The entity seems to just lose interest and move on. The family moves on as well, and Janet grows up later saying this: "I know what happened. I'll never forget it. I was not possessed, but something was with us." Till this very day, there's no universally accepted explanation of what took place. Skeptics say that the girls faked part of it. Investigators say that some events may have been playful exaggerations, if you will, but the core of the case, the objects moving, the voices, the public witnesses, remains untouched. Even police officers stood by what they said and what they saw. Now, the Enfield Poltergeist remains one of the most documented hauntings ever recorded, and one of the most disturbing at that. Not because of what people claimed, but because of what so many people saw for themselves. Now, I appreciate you following along. If you want more terrifying true stories like this one, hit the like button and please subscribe. It would be great to have you part of this community, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Take care.